And moving over to the opposite wing, the west wing, once again, this is pretty much, when we got there, it was pretty much one big space in what we call the hyphen, which is the space between the main body of the house and this block over here. On the Habs drawings, what we call Habs drawings, that were recorded in the 1930s, they called this room over here the kitchen. They did call this, interesting, the laundry room. So there was some sort of a memory that this was a laundry room. So we started looking very close at this. So this is what we found when we got there. And also when we got there, in the main room, there's this, and you'll see it today, there are these brass tracks that are in the floor. Could not figure that just ended abruptly with a modern flooring patch up against the far wall in this photograph. Down in the cellar was this weird, very strange brick mass there with almost like a stair coming down to one side. It's over that ladder there. Never seen anything like this in our lives. Could not figure out what it was. We finally, after a few years, were able to open up the floor, and we found an entire chamber there. This is sort of this brick raised chamber, and if you look off to the side here, there's actually a sort of a furnace there. Now, this furnace is not the original furnace. It's been replaced, probably in the 1880s. But we're realizing what this was a laundry drying chamber. So instead of just hanging their clothes out in the yard or in a laundry yard, they actually had a chamber. They had hot air that can, from this stove, they can pump into this room. And there was a flue out the back. And that's the way it worked. So they hung the clothes on these racks. I'm sorry, I should tell you what this diagram is. This is a similar chamber for the Derby Infirmary in England, built about 1810. But this pretty much matches what we're finding here at Gore Place. So if you notice, these tracks actually went over this space, and if you look at those double lines right there, those are we believe the tracks, these brass tracks you see in the floor tonight that you'll see extended over and into this deep chamber. That's how they dried their clothes. This is one actually from a Shaker settlement a little bit later, but you get an idea of what this thing looked like. Once again, we're talking, 1817 maybe at the latest, and he has this device in his house. I haven't even seen this in any of the French pattern books, but it existed in England, so it's very possible that they picked up this idea in England. There was a modern stair at the far end of the room, so there were lots of patches, and we tried to figure out how did this room really work. So here's a floor plan. We discovered that there was a stair, a servant's stair, over in the corner of the room. And so we started looking at the evidence of that and how that could have worked. Oh, by the way, I want to step back for just a moment. Before that laundry drying chamber was put in, there was a set kettle there. I'll show you what that is in a moment. But there was an evolution even during the Gore's occupancy of the house. And so we started tearing up floorboards to make some sense of what the rest of this later period floorboards, some sense of what this wing could have looked like. So once again, we're just exploring and trying to figure the house out. And we went down into the cellar and we realized that the stair was there, and it came down in what we believe was the original servants' quarters. So that's starting to tell us how this house functioned. How did the upstairs and downstairs people operate in such a house? And so based on the evidence that we found, we were able to recreate that stair, and this is just an early computer model of what you will see there tonight. The final little discovery that I'll just, or at least space that I'll talk about tonight, you may remember I just discussed that we thought the kitchen was upstairs. Well, the reality was that was part of the whole laundry system of the house. The actual kitchen was downstairs. So I started poking around the kitchen downstairs. Once again, there was a lot of concrete on the floor. And I lifted the concrete, because you can almost take it out with your fingers. And I found a brick floor, and that's not unusual to see in an old house like this. But then I noticed that the bricks were very oddly shaped, and they were put together in sort of this mishmashed way. It didn't really make any sense, and that some of them were actually burned. And I couldn't figure that out, and so it was very loose, and I took some of those up. And there's another brick floor underneath, a perfectly pristine brick floor. And I'm thinking, what is this about? And I started to realize, looking back at the records, I think Lena shared with me, that the Gores had what they call a Rumford kitchen. Let me talk about that. I'm going to skip ahead for a moment. There's a fellow by the name of Count Rumford. He wasn't a count, he just made that up. He's the guy, his real name was Benjamin Thompson. He was from Woburn, Massachusetts. And he developed what we call the Rumford fireplace. So up before Rumford, most fireplaces were just rectangular. They were square and plan. And he realized that if you put these splayed jambs on it, and that's a diagram, that's his diagram from his book, it would kick the heat out of the room. But he didn't stop there. He started developing all kinds of really fascinating devices. And one of them was a Rumford stove, or cooker. This is his drawing for that, and this is one that's still intact in a house in Virginia. I'm going to go back one. And he also started looking at these ranges. I think there were ranges that were set within the fireplace. Very, very efficient. You can put spits on them, and you can cook. You essentially took the fire in the fireplace and turned it vertically. And so it was automatic. You can turn all kinds of gears and counterweights to turn chickens and things like that in front of it. These became very, very popular in England, by the way, and the Gores certainly would have known about them. And so here is a Rumford kitchen in the upper left-hand corner. He developed a system where all these different sauces could be made. So the Gores, who must have become familiar with French food, having been there 6 months, that had to be cooked in a certain way. So suddenly they had the ability to roast things, they can grill things, and they also could make all these different types of sauces. And this also affected, once again, Thomas Jefferson. We found evidence for those down in the kitchen at Monticello. And over in the corner over here are what we call stew holes. And that's what allows for French cooking to happen in an early 19th century kitchen. So the wonderful thing about Gore Place is we made these discoveries. Many of these things have been put back. But I believe, I spent, 22 years here, and I think there's room now for a whole nother generation to come and have a whole nother 22 years here of exploration, because we still don't know so much about this house, and there's so much still to be learned. That's what's exciting. One of the great things exciting about Gore Place, because some of these sophisticated things still have not been discovered yet. And just to summarize it, some of these houses you feel like you've explored everything there is to explore. We're in the process, as Jim mentioned, of revitalizing Mount Vernon. This is actually the cellar of Mount Vernon, a diagram, and we're putting all the modern building systems in underneath the floors of the cellar. And that has necessitated a great deal of archaeology. And again, we all thought we knew that everything there was to know about Mount Vernon. And recently, you may have read it in the paper, we found 35 bottles of cherries and all kinds of other things that no one knew was there. They were forgotten. They were actually underneath Washington period brick that we had to carefully take up for the introduction of these systems. But we're, even on the architectural side, we're learning so much about Mount Vernon. We're rewriting how that house evolved, how it was designed, and how it evolved during Washington's lifetime. But all I can say is that this discovery, it's been all over the papers, will pale in comparison to what is going to be found here at Gore Place. It's going to be something that will be sensational. I hope I'm around to see it. Thank you very much.